Welcome back, everyone. Just another busy day in the radio restoration shop. I've got a couple of things on the bench here. I'll talk about it. The first one I want to talk about is a radio that I'm working on for a customer from Canada. And I've already done the evaluation on his radio. This is what he sent me. This is the one we're going to restore and make functional again. I'm just waiting for a few parts. I'm actually waiting for some Bluetooth modules, but I got the belts for the cassette deck, so we'll hopefully be able to get that done. I've got the bulbs, so we're going to redo his faceplate. Now, he sent me two radios. The other one is a parts unit, and this is really sad. So this customer bought a radio from a gentleman in Poland, and it arrived heavily damaged. I have the chassis torn apart to my right over here. I've kind of picked through what was good and what was bad. Let me see if I can. I think I have it right here. Let's take a look at her. So this is the chassis that got damaged, and you can see the corners are all bent up. The rear tuner housing cover is all bent to shit. Fixable, but you know, still pretty badly damaged. This particular radio he bought from a gentleman in Poland, as I said, and he had a so there's a guy out in Poland who is, I guess, trying to get into the restoration business as well, and I'm fine with that. We need competition in this field because it's, you know, it keeps everybody honest. But this gentleman, he does auxiliary jack mods, and he uses the same wiring technique that I use for my Bluetooth mods, which, hey, it works. He did a beautiful job with the Bluetooth mod, and I really can't say enough about how slick this mod is. I mean, he's got this jack that kind of gets tucked under the dash, and you can kind of position it where you want. It's not a service that I plan on offering because I don't want to deal with stocking auxiliary jacks and stuff. Not my bag. I prefer to go with the future-proof Bluetooth option, which allows you to connect any modern device to your factory radio. But one thing that caught my eye about this one, take a look at the faceplate on this. You might see some stuff that might look familiar to you. Now, these faceplates are heavily damaged. I may or may not be able to restore these again because they're cracked pretty badly. This one, I think I can restore this. I think I can repair this one. So let me tell you how my faceplates work. So whenever I get in a radio, if I have extra faceplates from radios that were parted out, I will have those restored well in advance. So that way, when a radio comes in, I can just turn and burn it. Just replace the entire faceplate as a unit and just get it out the door faster. But that requires me to actually have good restorable faceplates coming in from other radios. This one I'm going to save. It's going to require a little bit of work, but it's got a heavy crack right there. But it's all there. It's complete. The tabs aren't broken off, so we can save this one. But take a look at this faceplate. Anything look familiar to you? These are my overlays. I sold these overlays worldwide, and it's kind of funny seeing a radio come into my shop that's already had the BBISHOPPCM treatment, so to speak. A couple of things I want to point out, and I hope the gentleman from Poland is watching this. I don't recall your name. I actually have it on file because I know who I sold these to, so I know exactly where they went. So I should probably contact him. So he sold this radio to a gentleman in Canada, and as a restored, ready to install unit, it got destroyed in shipment. But beyond that, the faceplate wasn't done properly. Now, I was pretty explicit with my instructions, and I sent those instructions to anyone who I sold these overlays to. You have to clear coat these faceplates. Now, I can tell you didn't clear coat it because the finish doesn't. The finish from the main body of the faceplate to where the decals are, it's not the same. So what ends up happening is, and I've got to take this all down to whatever anyway, so this is really no harm, no foul, but these decals, these water slide decals, require a clear coat. If you bought one of my kits, you have to clear coat these. And the only clear coat that I recommend is Spray Max. And I recommend Spray Max Matte Finish to give it a non-glossy finish, which is what it would have shipped with from the factory. But if you don't do that, these decals will just peel off, and like that. Okay, just like that, like they were never, because the adhesive, and not only that, but you have to cut these small. You don't want a large surface area of decal. You want it as small as it can be, and then you want to clear coat it. If you don't do it, not only will they peel off, but they'll oxidize. I mean, it's just, and the paint will oxidize too. It looks like he did a great job on the paint work. I mean, for someone who doesn't do a lot of these, I know how many of these I sold him, and I know he hasn't done a ton of them. But yeah, he didn't do my method for sure. So I'm going to reach out to him and give him a little bit of feedback. I know who it is. I know who I just, because I keep track of all my customers, and but it's weird. This radio originally came from Poland. Now, I also looked at the work he did. It looks like he replaced only the burned out bulbs, because I see this one's been replaced. It's not that great, but the rest of them appear to be factory. I compared this to one that's never been touched, and it looks like he's just replacing the dead bulbs, not the ones that are. I replace all of them. So when you pay me to restore your radio, or if you buy one from me, as I come up with units for sale, here's what it's going to have. You're going to have all new bulbs. I don't do just the dead ones. I do all of them. Secondly, your cassette decks will have all new belts. Let's take a look. I didn't even look at this cassette deck to see what was done to it, but I suspect that just the bare minimum was done to make it functional. And I'm not making this video to badmouth a fellow radio man, but I just want to point out, when you restore these and when you modify them, there's a level of workmanship that you must adhere to in order to give the customer or yourself the most bang for your buck. So this radio, I never really tested this. I think it does work. I actually didn't even check. I'm going to ultimately buy this radio from the customer for parts, because it's the chassis damaged and the faceplate's damaged, and it's like, okay, but he wants to keep this this mod. So what I might do is I might actually reuse parts of this radio in the one that I build for the customer, so I don't have to redo all of this. And what he wants, the customer wants to have this Bluetooth thing, but I'm sorry, the customer wants the aux jack. He wants to keep that. He did pay for it, but he also wants Bluetooth. So what I'm going to do is integrate Bluetooth alongside the aux jack, which is totally doable. 100% doable. We're going to do it. It'll be the only one I do. The only one, because I don't do aux jacks. Once again, I get a lot of people asking me about aux jacks. I don't do them. And it's not that they're no more difficult to do than a Bluetooth mod. In fact, they're probably easier. But I just, I've made the choice not to stock those parts. That's what it is. It's a matter of stocking parts. I don't want to stock parts for that purpose. Let's pull this cassette deck out and see what we got going on. Something's sticking. Oh, whoa. What is this shit? Oh, boy. Oh, what did he do this? What the hell is going on here? Okay. I didn't even notice this until now. But he's got the motor disconnected. Now, why would he do that? So, let me point out a couple of things. Now, this stereo, I had this on film and I deleted the footage when I first got this in. the CD player was disconnected. The main board of the CD player was disconnected. And I think I still have that footage. I'm gonna have to find it. So the CD player was disconnected because he couldn't get it to work correctly. So he just unplugged it. The cassette deck has been permanently disabled by unplugging the motor. So that goes to show, I mean, he probably didn't put new belts on this. Let's take a look. Why would he, right? My God, I hope our friendly customer from the north didn't pay a lot for this. Because he got ripped off. He got ripped off. I charge a lot. I do. I admit. I mean, I'm not cheap, but I also do the job right. And nothing leaves my shop unless it's 100%. It looks like it's a good belt. Not a new belt, but a good belt. I just can't get my pick in there. We're not reusing it anyway. The cassette deck isn't cleaned. The pinch rollers are glazed over. Nobody attempted to clean them. My God. I hope he didn't pay a lot. Oh my God. And it wasn't packed right. It was packed very poorly, so it ultimately arrived destroyed. Okay, let's put that aside for now because we got a lot to cover. The radio that we are going to rebuild is going to be this one here. And we're going to go through the motions. We're going to pull her apart. We're going to, yeah. I got my work cut out for me. Before I dive into that, though, I want to take a look at some radios that I just bought. So, in order to keep this business going, I have to make a profit. I have to make money. I mean, I don't do this for charity. So, I have come up with pricing that allows me to at least maintain, some semblance of profit. But it's expensive. My first year has been costly. I've had to buy equipment. I've had to spend hours and hours and hours of my own time just to get this rolling. And I don't spend money on advertisement. I don't advertise. I don't go out and... what I will do is I'll troll forums sometimes, and I'll look for people who have posted questions about their factory radios. And I will say, hey, I do offer the ability to restore that. Let me know if you're interested. Here's my rates. Here's my card. Have a nice day. But I occasionally will have radios come in that they're just parts units. And if I will buy those from the customer for a fair price, and then when I have enough parts, I'll build a radio that I can actually sell to somebody who doesn't have one. And I just sold a Pioneer to a gentleman out in the West Coast, and I got a pretty fair amount of money. It definitely put a little bit of profit in my ledger. So I won't say how much I sold it for because the price doesn't matter. It's based on market conditions. So if suddenly, a million of these things start flooding the market, then clearly the prices will go down. But I bought 2 radios from a scrapyard, Miata Mecca, off eBay. And I've actually dealt with them before. Miata Mecca is, and there's a few of these around, it's a junkyard that just scraps Miatas. And there are quite a few similar junkyards. When you have a very particular type of vehicle that is popular amongst restorationists and preservationists and everyone else, for example, there's Corvette scrapyards, there's Camaro scrapyards, there's British Roadster scrapyards. Well, there's definitely some Miata ones too. And they're a treasure trove of radios. This one here and this one here came from the same auction. I bought them as a pair. And you can see this one is definitely a bit Titanic. I suspect this one, this is saltwater damage. This car may or may not have been in the ocean. Or it might have been a flood car. I'm going to say this is probably from a flood car. Now, it doesn't look like the radio was submerged, but it was definitely, it definitely got wet. So, we'll take a look at that later. But what I want to do, this one may or may not work. Let's power this one up if we can. Let me get my wiring all clipped in. But I wanted to show you another thing, which is one reason I bought this, because it had this plug installed. This is the plug that you get when you don't have a factory CD player. This is a bypass plug, and what it does, or it's a jumper plug, it jumps these two pins and these two pins together. So these get bonded together and these get bonded together. That's what this is for. So if you've got a car without a factory CD player, it will not work unless you jump those pins or if you have this plug installed. So to me, that was worth just having one on hand. It's great for diagnosing issues. So that's kind of why I wanted it. All right, let's ground this thing out, get some power to it, see what we get. We got lights. No display. We got display lights, but it's intermittent. I want to point something out, by the way. I'm going to turn this light off for a sec. Now, these Pioneers only have one lamp on the display, and it looks like there's a lamp out, but there isn't. There's only one bulb on this. I sent one out for repair that someone had sent me. I returned a radio for repair to a gentleman out in California. And he says that it looks like one of the lamps is out. And unfortunately, that's not the case. There's only one lamp on these Panasonics. Kind of a dumb design. It looks like it's broken, but it's not. Yeah, I question that too. I don't know what to say. So this one here, it says it cuts out. So I already know what the problem is. That's why I was willing to pay $40. Because the problem is a common issue with these Panasonics. Thank you. The problem is unique to the Panasonics, and it has to do with just some shitty engineering. The solder. So what happens to these radios is there are several solder points that are prone to cracking, and they're usually in the rear on the amplifier board, but they're also on the main board of the unit. And it's just a shitty design. What can I say? So we've got power. Let's see if the cassette deck works. I've got this 3000 hertz. I don't want to waste that. No. I paid money for that one. Let's use this tape here. It's just a blank tape. So the cassette deck is frozen. Almost. Oh, wait. It's loading. Okay. Yeah, it's got some very typical cassette deck issues, but at least it responds. Oh, it might actually. Cassette deck works. Nice. Alright. One thing I want to point out is it says it cuts out. Yep, it does. So there's a broken solder joint back here. No big deal. Easy fix. Seriously. Not a problem. My tape is now stuck in this thing, so that happened. No biggie. I've got everything I need to fix that, so I'm not too concerned. But let's go ahead and test the tuner.
Arthritis pain or lingering pain from an injury. Don't let them operate on you or give you more steroids. Say no to the pain pills and call QC Kinetics and see if their life-changing, all-natural treatments can get you living your best life.
Not bad at all.
And appointments are available as soon as next week. Call QC Kinetics for a free consultation.
Okay, now the thing is, I bought this because I do get a lot of requests for Panasonic restorations. Now, these radios were used in all but the special edition, the limited editions, and the package C with Bodysonic. So these are a very common radio, but they all have the same exact problems. Everyone that has crossed my bench has had the same problems. And I'll tell you what they are. Burned lamps. Always. Just 100% always happens. The amplifier cuts out with a bump. So you drive down the road and you bumps, and you might get one or two speakers cutting out. The entire radio may shut down. The cassette deck may be playing fine and then it just cuts out. Maybe spits the tape out. All of these issues are caused by broken solder joints, except for the lamps. That's a separate issue. But broken solder joints are very common on these. It happens, and it's fixable. I've had some issues. I've had some weird issues with these too. I've had a couple of folks complain that the audio is low on one side and bright on the other. So you might get great sound from one side, but kind of reduced audio output on the other side. That is something I've not been able to correct. I've got a gentleman who's sending me a radio that has that exact issue, and I'm only taking it in because it was one that I had previously worked on. So now when I tested it on my bench, I had no issues whatsoever. So we're gonna see what happens. So another reason I bought this is in case that customer's radio turns out to be a dud, I'm going to send him this one, or whatever the case may be, I'm going to make it right to him. He paid me good money to take care of his issues, and I intend to follow through with that. Let's take a quick look at this one real quick. While I got your attention. You can pop the amplifiers off these without any major disassembly. All you've got to do is pop this screw out. So for the $40 I paid for this radio, it's a pig in a poke. It needs a cassette deck rebuild. It's going to need lamps because it's old. But I think, if nothing else, it's going to save the day for this other customer I have. It's going to make him happy. Again, I want happy customers. I don't want angry customers. I think that's pretty straightforward. Pretty self-explanatory as to why. When you're a small business like this and you're working entirely on references and referrals, I should say, you know, happy customers mean more customers. And don't ever lose sight of that. If you're in a similar position as me. Now you're good. I'm bound to have a customer who gets angry at me and I can't solve the problem. I can't make them happy. Well, let's just hope that doesn't happen. So let's take a look. We can find the problem. Now, the great thing about broken solder joints is they're easy to spot for the most part. And they're going to be centered around areas of mechanical stress. Yeah, I think I see a possible one there. I see one there. I see one there. So near connectors, that's where you're going to find them. Near connectors. That's a possible one right there too. So the thing is, on these Pioneer, excuse me, I do get them mixed up all the time. The Panasonics, the way they were built and the way these boards were stamped out, the holes are too big. Yeah, right. The holes for the components, the through-hole components, are too large. So in the event of mechanical stresses, vibrations, etc., it puts a lot of strain on the solder. And it can result in a stress fracture in the solder joint. I think our problem is elsewhere in the machine, though. I think our issue is somewhere deeper inside. I see, oh, look at this. Let me see if I can point this out. I really can't. But right here, you've got definitely a broken joint there, and you got one here. Now that is between this power transistor and the board, and it is broken. Oh, 100%. Let me see if I can look at that on my magnifier. But you can see, ooh, right in the middle there. I can't, my camera won't focus, it's too short a distance. Let me look at it through my magnifier and see if I can get a better look at it. Oh yeah, that's an easy one right there. So a power transistor, you're gonna have some serious problems. So I was able to demonstrate the issue by bouncing the unit on the bench a little bit, jostle it some, and when I did that, it did cut out. So that's the problem. That's the biggest issue. Now the other issues, we can fix those. We've done enough of them. It's not a big deal. But the cassette deck it's going to need a belt, good cleaning, lubrication, and we're going to do a speed adjustment on it. I do that on all of them now, because I have had some issues with these cassette decks as they get old. But all we're going to do is we're going to take some solder, and oh, there's my solder. I'm going to take some, just take a little bit of solder, and we're going to just reinforce those joints, melt them, and reflow them. It's that simple. When I price out repairs on Panasonics, it may seem like I'm being a little unfair because I do charge a little bit for these. Again, I don't discuss pricing necessarily in my videos because it's always changing, but when I give you a quote for a Panasonic after you've described what the problem is and other issues it may have, I'm going to price in the time it takes me to solve all the broken solder joints that I know it has that you are not aware of. Even radios that seemingly function fine. I've never seen this problem on a Pioneer. Just a Panasonic. They all have this problem. And it's just the way they're designed. It's very strange problem to have. And again, we got one here. What I'm looking for is a telltale ring around the solder joint. Sometimes the ring is normal, and it has to do with the flux as it was washed off. At least sometimes it leaves a ring, and sometimes not. So I see one here on the amplifier chip. That reminds me, I need to price out amplifier chips. I think I'll show you what that looks like in a second. So the amplifier, all the amplification is taking place right here, and there's a transistor pack that makes that happen. It makes that magic happen. And those can go bad too. And I suspect that in the case of low volume, either it's a capacitor problem or it's your amplifier chip. But the point is, all of these are fixable. Now, I've talked a little bit about who is paying me, who is giving me money to fix these. Why would somebody fix one of these radios instead of just going to Best Buy and buying an aftermarket radio? People who preserve vintage cars want vintage stereos. They want the dash to look authentic. But it's not good enough to just have the authentic radio in there with the cassette deck, maybe the CD player. Not good enough. You've got to have Bluetooth. They want to be able to link their phones to it so that they can actually listen to, audio in the modern way. So my position, my goal in life, is to make that possible. You can have the best of both worlds. You can have your cake and you can eat it too. That's what I do. I give people the right or the ability to use these old radios exactly as they were intended. You can still play cassettes. You can still play CDs if possible, if I can fix it. And you can connect your Bluetooth device to it as well. I think we just solved most of the issues with this radio. I think we're good. Yeah, I think these radios were kind of these Panasonics. I think they were cursed at the factory with these issues. I do believe that it's possible that some of them have had this problem since they were very young, and that's why so many of them got thrown away, swapped out. But hopefully we can save them. Let's take a look at our cassette deck. I'll do a separate video for the other stereo as well. Probably not a full restoration video, but we'll do something on it. So yeah, I've been getting customers from all over the world. Canada, all over the country, all over the United States, except Hawaii and Alaska. I've got someone from one of my customers actually lives in Thailand, and he maintains a home in the U.S. I really, I'll talk about that for a sec. Whenever somebody comes to me and says, "Yeah, hi, I live in Thailand and I want you to work on my radio, but I also live in the U.S." It does raise some red flags. I checked this guy out 6 ways to Sunday, and it turned out to be legit. I'm fairly certain of that. And we did business together. I sold him a radio, and he wants to send me some for restoration. And he does, in fact, have a place in Washington. So that was an interesting one. Didn't expect that. The word's getting out, as I've said before. People want these radios to function. They want their factory stereos. And it's a market that, nobody knew it existed. I didn't know it existed, let me be honest. But here we are. This one I own outright. So I'm going to fix it up and make something of it. I don't want to use this as a parts radio if I can help it. I want to fix it. I want to make it good. I'm going to add Bluetooth to this thing, and we're going to sell it. Maybe make a few bucks. There we go. I think I have to back the faceplate off a little bit. Just take the knobs off. There we go. When taking the faceplates off of Panasonic, you've got to be real careful. You got to do it a little at a time, because you're disconnecting a row of connectors that have never been separated before. And you got to take the top cover off too. Forgot that little detail. Forgot that little nugget of information. There we go. Off. There we go. Now we can get in her. But yeah, I'm still waiting for my order of Bluetooth adapters so I can take care of the Canadian radio. Don't know when that's going to come in. There we go. So yeah, just to show you what I mean. So we're looking at the back side of the display and control panel. And the LCD display is right here. Okay. And there is... Oh, wait a second. This one's got 2. Hold the phone. I think I might be wrong. I might be confusing this with a different one. In which case, I owe that other customer a sincere apology. I thought these only had 1 light on them. I think I might be wrong. Whoops. part here. Don't bend the fingers. Couple of things I want to talk about, some common problems with these stereos, and I've worked on quite a few of these so far, and I've seen the same problems over and over and over. Some of the most common issues with these radios, besides the lights burning out and the faceplate, which are easily replaced, this one's already been done. Got all new lamps on this one. Biggest issues are it cuts out, doesn't turn on, one channel's out, the other one's fine. Those are the kinds of issues you're going to find with these, and I'm going to show you why. This is a radio, there's actually two radios piled on my desk. One of them is a customer's radio, but this one belongs to me. I bought it to repair and resell. And this one here has all of the issues that I always see on Panasonics. We'll start with the audio cutting out, the power cutting out. It won't turn on, stuff like that. For whatever reason, when Panasonic laid out these boards, when they sent them out to be manufactured, to be drilled and solder masked, they made the holes just a hair too big. They're actually enormous compared to other boards I've worked on. And what happens is, when you have components that interlock with each other, interconnect through like a series of comb pins like this one here, and you install these boards in a compact fashion in a dashboard in a roadster that's subject to vibration and bumps and stuff like that, and temperature fluctuations, wild temperature fluctuations. What's going to happen is you're putting a lot of stress on these joints, on these fingers, these combs. You're also putting stress on the buttons and anything that connects, solidly connects from the board to the chassis of the radio or in between boards. And you end up with solder fatigue, the term I just made up out of thin air. What's happening here is these solder joints near these connectors, I've marked them in red. These have already been fixed, and what I do is when these radios come into my shop, I address all of the obvious issues, and then I tear the radio apart, and I look for these kinds of problems. Now, this one here has the most number of broken solder joints I have ever seen. And you can identify them. I'll show you under the magnifier what it looks like. The fix is simple. Number one, you've got to find them. Number two, you've got to fix them. So let's see if I can get this on camera here. Show you what I'm looking for. All right, let me try to identify one here. And they're not always obvious. Sometimes they, here's an obvious one. This one right here. Okay, you can see it. You can't really see it. I can't possibly zoom in enough to show this to you. Let's try this. Oh, perfect. Okay, I can see it with the naked eye right now. Right there. So this one, get the light on it. So you got to look at it under different angles of light. But you can see an obvious crack around this joint. It goes all the way around. I can see it. See that right there? Now, that might not be bad enough to cause a constant issue, but if you hit a bump and the lights go out, or the cassette deck stops, or the sound goes out, that's why. And that is so common on these radios. Every single Panasonic that has come in my shop for whatever reason has had broken solder joints. They all do it. Now, what's less obvious is I've got one that's actually coming back to me that I had already fixed for a customer for other reasons. He's sending it back because it's possible that his amplifier could be going out. So I'm going to take another look at it. But when I have it in my shop here, I'm going to take another look at it for broken joints. I might have missed one. So we're going to see about that when that comes in. But I'm probably going to send them this radio once I get it finished. But that is why your Panasonic doesn't work. And it's a simple fix. It's part of my deal where you send me your radio, I fix it and send it back. That's one of the things I check for. I replace your lamps, I look for broken joints, I fix them, reassemble the radio. Another issue that, this is almost comically common. The cassette decks don't work in these. Here's a cassette deck that I just refurbished. This one has been refurbished, lubricated, cleaned. I still need to adjust the speed on it, but it has the hallmark, or had the hallmark, where you put in a tape and it doesn't take the tape in. It just, or it might take it in very slowly and it may not eject. The reason for that is the gear train that drives the load-unload mechanism is driven off of a worm gear. But those gears, and there's no belts at that point. The belt is, it drives the spindles. But the gear train locks completely solid. And what's happening is there's nylon gears in there that have shrunk over time and they will no longer turn on the shafts. So what I do is I remove the entire gear train, disassemble it. I actually remount the holes, relubricate it, reassemble it, retime it, and then ship it. So those are the common issues with these Panasonics. Another thing you need to know is if you buy a Panasonic radio from a scrapyard, for example, and you want to restore, I've got one customer potentially in the northwest, I believe, United States. No, he's in Florida. Sorry, I got a customer in Florida who may be sending me a stereo. He's restoring a black and tan, which is a special edition Miata. It's one of the most beautiful ones. It's a beautiful black exterior, just like the LE, but it has a tan leather interior. It's a beautiful color combo. Very German. BMW is known for that combination. But he wants to restore his with the factory Panasonic radio. Anyway, I do get a lot of requests for these. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. If you bought one of these radios off of eBay to restore your car and you get no sound out of it, the first thing you need to check, if it doesn't have a CD player, if there's no CD player, the first thing you want to check is on the back of the amplifier. It's got to have this plug on it. Now this plug is just a jumper. If you don't have this plug, it's okay. But what it does is it jumps pin 4 to 3 and 2 to 1. So pin 1 and 2 are jumped. Pin 3 and 4 are jumped. This is because on this stereo, it sends the audio signal, the preamp audio, out through the auxiliary. For example, the CD player would be one of those auxiliary devices. And then it sends it back, and then it goes through the amplifier. So if you don't jump those pins, you won't get any sound. And this is the factory jumper plug that comes with non-CD equipped stereos. If you've got a CD player, you don't need this. And if you don't have this plug, again, you can actually use paper clips. No joke, just stick them in there. Jumps 1, 2, 3, and 4. Done. And you'll have sound. Incidentally enough, this is how I modify these stereos to have Bluetooth capabilities. I actually use those points right there to get sound through a Bluetooth module. So a couple very important things to note if you've got a Panasonic radio. People who don't collect classic cars and aren't into restoring vintage cars and don't understand why this is a thing that exists, I'm just a quick explainer. Folks who are very particular about their classic cars often want factory equipment, even if that means an outdated stereo. because it looks proper in the dashboard. It especially becomes important if you've got a limited edition 93 Miata where they came with the silver faceplate stereos from Pioneer. And those weren't just a nice stereo, they also included what was called the Bodysonic system, where you could feel the bass through the seats. It was a very unique setup that really didn't have a lot of success, but being the owner of such a vehicle, I have a 94, which had that as a factory option. It is pretty cool. And because you can't stuff there's no real space for a subwoofer in a Miata, that gives you the same effect, and it works really well. So I got to get this radio back together and maybe send it off to one of my past customers to solve some issues he's having, and then I'll have to do something with the radio he sends back to me. But yeah. Also, CD players. If you've got a factory CD player on a Panasonic radio, I do not repair them. I've given it my all. I'm done with them. They are just too frustrating. They weren't that good to begin with. They skip at the slightest provocation. So rather than fix CD players, I've started focusing my efforts on adding Bluetooth functionality built in. So you don't have to do anything. You just maybe flip a switch and that enables it. But beyond that, it's seamless and it works slick. So thank you for watching. If you have any, if you have a radio that you want looked at or repaired, upgraded, whatever, I'll leave my email address in the description. And until then, just a quick jump ahead. So I've got now 2 more sets of faceplates all ready to, well, they're painted. They're not ready to go, but they're painted. And they're looking pretty good. These, once this paint cures, they're going to get decals, overlays, and clear coat. And up here in a special spot where I put finished radios, these radios are now basically ready to ship. With the exception of this Pioneer, I'm waiting for one of my one of the knobs that's in that painting lot back there. When that's ready to go, it's going to go in this radio. And this one is going to go back to Canada. So this radio has been from Poland to Canada to the US, and will be going back to Canada. I've nicknamed it the Globetrotter. This one here is one that I purchased that is now restored, fully functional. I did not do a Bluetooth mod on this one, but we'll see what happens with that one. That radio might actually go to a previous customer who sent me his radio for repairs, and he got it back. And he's now having a different issue. I think I know what it might be, but just to be safe, I've got that one ready to go when he's ready for it. So